I'm sitting here with NBA Hall of Famer and analyst for TNT's Inside the NBA, Charles Barkley. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I really can't complain. It's a lot worse for people out there, with this COVID virus. A lot of people are sick and unfortunately some people are dying, and it's a lot of businesses out there struggling. So I think I'd be a total jackass to act like my life sucks. So I'm doing good.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad that you're doing well. So what does Charles Barkley do outside of basketball? Because I know that we are also consumed by sports 99% of the time. What do you like to do for fun? How do you stay with it?
Well, it's been weird. I've said for years, unless you're a teacher, fireman, policeman, and now you have to throw nurses and doctors in that, you should just shut the hell up and do what you do, because those are like the only real jobs in the world. But I will admit this, sports are really important. Number one, because, it gets you just away from reality. Mm-hmm. So I have really missed sports a great deal. But I happen like everybody else doing that, absolutely nothing. So when this thing first started, I made this, like, I like to drink. So I said, okay, you can't drink at all during the week. You got to only drink on Friday and Saturday. And I've stuck to that. I've been working out twice a day. I've been playing golf about probably 3 days a week. But I've been practicing on those other days for a couple hours.
How's the golf swing coming along? Because the last time I saw it, the golf swing was a little shaky. How's it coming along now?
Well, you're going to have to wait until Sunday and see, because I'm broadcasting the Phil and Tiger Brady Manning match. And I'm going to do a little charity thing on Saturday and try to win some money for my charity. So I'm looking forward to that. But this thing has been tough. You can't not do anything. The only thing I'm missing in my life right now is fishing. Because, during the summer, which I'm probably going to get screwed out of my summer this summer, I know I'm going to play golf and fish all the time. Mm-hmm. I love to golf. I love to fish. But look like I'm going to be working all summer. So it's going to be interesting for me. It's going to be interesting for everybody because, I'm on the record saying I don't think we should play basketball. I said, I just don't think it's safe. Mm-hmm. I would hate to see one of my players get sick, but I'd also hate to see a wife or a girlfriend or a kid or a mom and dad or grandparents get this thing, because it's really, really serious. It's really, really dangerous. And I just don't know how you're going to make this thing work. You hear the thing about Vegas and Florida, then my first question would be, wait, are the maids they're going to be going home every day. The people who do the room service, they're going to be going home every day. Just keeping the players on a bubble, I don't think the risk is worth the reward.
I would agree. I mean, I have arguments going both ways just based on what it's going to bring for the future with the CBA and everything money-wise. I know that's the least of the concern right now, but I'm kind of 50-50. But if they can't figure out a way to do it, where everyone's safe and healthy, definitely can't come back. But I am seeing now, I saw something that California said that sports could possibly resume by the end of June. I'm not sure. Again, I know things are opening up out here in Arizona, but I agree with you that it needs to be safe.
I just don't know how you can make it safe. You look at, everybody's talking about practicing social distance. I don't think when you're at the free throw line or you're in the post and things like that, you're practicing social distance. I think you're going to have big guys wrestling in the post. You're going to have guys out there guarding each other. So they won't be practicing social distancing. How are guys going to sit on the bench? And you got the ball that you're throwing around to different guys. So it's just, it's really a tough call. I know it's a tough call. My thing was, though, at least if we wait until the fall, I think, number one, we will know more about all these states that are opening up that just opened,
Yeah.
we will be able to at least see some of their results. And obviously we'll be closer to treatments and a vaccine, but to see how these states react in the next, the season normally starts in October, the end of October. So to see how these states who are trying to get back to normal, to see how you can see like, okay, they've been open for 3 months. How is this thing? You could do it technically a month at a time and see how things are going. And I would feel a lot more confident going into next season instead of trying to finish this season.
Yeah, I would also agree with that as well. But thankfully, we've had the Last Dance to keep us occupied. I think it was great for the basketball world, sports world, and just for people in general. Obviously, the Bulls. When you think of the NBA, you think of that Bulls team, 2 3-peats. Was there anything that new that you learned from that documentary that you maybe didn't already know, or anything that really shocked you?
I think in episode 3 or 4, when Dennis wanted to go to Vegas in the middle of the season, I had not heard that before. That was hilarious and funny. I mean, it was awesome. Like, he says, Scotty got a vacation. I need a vacation too in the middle of the season. I never heard that before. I don't think there was anything else in honesty that shocked me that I didn't know. I mean, I'm glad finally in episode 9 and 10, they showed that the Bulls actually had some tough series, including us and the Jazz. In the beginning, I was like, man, they must have swept everybody. Just like we know Michael's the GOAT, but they made it seem like they never lost or never had any competition, because if you actually look at a bunch of those games, they came down to the last shot. I mean, we won 2 games on them. And, Pax hit the 1 shot, which was a big deal. And same thing against the Jazz. Michael hit a couple big shots, but the Jazz still had won 2 games. They won 7 games with the Pacers, and they had some knockdown drag out with the New York Knicks. But I'm glad they showed that, like, we weren't all just kissing the ring. We were trying to beat them.
Absolutely. And another thing to go with your point is, everyone, I mean, Jordan is the GOAT when we look at the comparisons, who he played against, the era, but he also didn't always take the last shot. I think people thought that he was always the one that's hitting the game-winning shots, but he was passing in times like with Steve Kerr, some of those big-time shots. And I think when they start making the comparisons and saying, LeBron in crunch time, he chokes, but I think when you look at LeBron, he doesn't necessarily, that's not his style to always take over the game and hit the game-winning shots, but more so, making the game-winning play.
Well, I'm never going to say anything bad about LeBron, because he's a great player and he's a great man. Those are 2 things I'm sure of. He's a great, great player and he's a great man. And I just said the difference between Michael and LeBron is, because I thought Kobe Bryant's the closest I've ever seen to Michael, as far as like, I just want to win. I'm not worried about who likes me, who dislikes me. I just want to win. And that's the closest I've seen. Because Michael, as you see, he just like, hey, I'm not worried about political BS. I just want to be the best basketball player. And Kobe was like that when I've been around him. And LeBron to me is more like a Magic Johnson type guy, where he prefer to pass the ball instead of score, but he's great in his own right.
I love what LeBron's doing. I'm sure you saw that he hosted that virtual graduation online, and he's doing so much in the community. What can you say about him? I'm assuming you've met him before. I've never had a chance to meet him yet. I'm hoping one day soon I can get a chance to interview him. But I absolutely love what he does off the court, more so than what he does on the court.
Well, he had the school he has back in Akron is amazing. He's really, doing some great stuff. He got all the television stuff he's doing is pretty good. But, to have a school, I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm thinking only 2 other guys have done that, like David Robinson. I think Jalen Rose has a leadership academy like that also. But, a guy to build a school to help underprivileged kids is a really cool thing.
So I want to kind of go back to The Last Dance. So Michael Jordan was portrayed as this bully. He has a different style. What was your style when you were leading that Suns team?
Well, so that's a really good question because when I first became a star, I think it was like my third or fourth year in Philadelphia, I was I'm a yeller and a screamer. And you have to learn that every guy's not built the same. And it took me, Dr. J pulled me aside. He said, hey, you can yell at this guy, this guy, this guy, but you have to pat this guy on the back. And it took me a while to learn that. And when like when I was in Philly, me and Rick Mahorn could yell. When I was playing like crap, Rick Mahorn would yell at me, call me every name in the book, and it would pump me up. And then there was other guys, we had to pat them on the back all the time. When I got traded to Phoenix, Dan Marley was my right-hand man, him and Kevin Johnson, but I could yell at Dan, and Dan could yell at me to tell us to pick it up and stop sucking that night. And we took it like, okay, you're right, Dan, I'm letting you down. All right, Chuck, I'm letting you down. But there were other guys on the team that, you have to pat them on the back all the time. Like, come on, man. And that's probably, like, Michael don't have a one way. And it's not up for me to say whether it's right or wrong, but he just has that one way. And some people took it as bullying and mistreatment. But hey, listen, we all lead. I mean, Bobby Knight, one of the greatest coaches ever. And, he had his way. It's not for everybody. I prefer Coach K's way personally. Mm-hmm. But, it just depends on your flavor.
No, I would agree. I mean, I kind of like that style. I mean, for me, that's how I like to be when I'm ever working out or being coached or doing whatever. I like to be told. I don't like anyone sugarcoating anything for me. So when you were playing, who were some of the hardest guys for you to defend?
Well, the best player I ever played against was Kevin McHale. He was amazing. First of all, he's a great guy. I work with him now on TV. Mm-hmm. But I've always said he was the best player that I played against. People want you to say Bird. They want you to say Karl Malone, who are both great players. But those guys, number one, I felt pretty good against those guys. But Kevin McHale was a pain in the ass nightmare for me to try to guard and for him to guard me.
A lot of the players now are actually starting to be more in control lately in terms of where they want to choose to go play, contracts, all that. Do you like this new shift of control?
I don't like it when they all want to play together because, sports are about competition. That's what they're really about. But it's interesting you said that because that was the one thing that I did not like about the documentary because, normally when you play sports, we have very strict rules on what stays in the locker room. What happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. But if you saw with The Last Dance, players don't like each other. Coaches and general managers hate each other. Players hate the general manager. Well, first of all, that goes on every team. But the thing that me and my friends were joking about, which is really true and funny, like that team was winning. I says, that's the one thing I told to him. I says, that the reason we say keep all the stuff in the locker room is because that team won 6 championships and they hated each other. And I said, can you imagine what it's like on the bad teams? And I says, that's the reason we say, hey, whatever happens in the locker room stays in the locker room because everybody wanted to be all shits and giggles, but it's a lot of stuff that goes into it. It should never get out of the locker room. That to me was the only negative about The Last Dance.
You spoke about Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf and how Jerry's kind of painted Krause as this villain. But I don't think people really understood that this is Jerry Reinsdorf's team. Like he's the owner of the team. If he really wanted them to come back for another year, 2 years, it would have happened. But what we saw yesterday was, Jerry saying, he pulled Phil Jackson aside and said, I want you to come back another year after telling him it would be the last dance. Michael kind of rolled his eyes about the whole, players are going to want to get paid. Do you think that they would have wanted to come back another year? Or do you think a guy like Scotty, who didn't get paid what he deserved, would have just wanted to walk?
No, I thought that was really bogus when he's saying that he went to Phil. Like you had already said you wanted a divorce for a year, and then you can't go back at the end of a year and say, hey, let's try this thing again. I mean, it was over at that point. Mm-hmm. I mean, those guys had already made up their mind. They were never going to pay those guys. what it really came down to. You know, they did. You know, everybody talk about how Michael only made money his last 2 years, and actually, in fairness, Scotty made more money in his NBA. Even though Michael made $30 million, Scotty made more money than Michael over the length of his NBA career, not from Nike, but from just playing. And he did not want to pay those guys. It started in the first repeat when he didn't want to pay Horace Grant. So I guarantee you he wasn't paying Scotty. I guarantee you, I don't even know he wasn't paying Dennis. I'm pretty sure. I don't even know, but I guarantee you he wasn't. But, you know, they tried to slant one of those things like, was Scotty just signed a bad deal. I mean, he shouldn't have signed it. And actually, Reinsdorf, if you remember, told him not to sign it.
You and your relationship with Michael Jordan isn't what it used to be. But, you know, you have a job as a commentator and an analyst to talk about sports. How do you find that balance of, you know, being unbiased, as a reporter should, but also maintaining respect amongst your peers and colleagues?
It doesn't work like that. You can't be selective. You got to do your job. I mean, I'm pretty sure, I don't know a lot about your career, but I'm pretty sure there's guys or girls that you're going to become friends with or probably even like as a person, even if you don't even get to, you know, don't know them. And you're going to have to be critical at times. Mm-hmm. And that's really unfortunate. I mean, first of all, I remember the story, you know, actually, it might have been the Suns. The game where Kobe wouldn't shoot the ball when it was the Suns. They were playing the Suns, and Kobe was pissed because they didn't have a good team, and they played him in the playoffs. And Kobe went the whole second half and only took like one shot. And I went crazy on Kobe after the game, and that was bogus bullshit what he did, not shooting. And then everybody else picked up it later and said, yeah, he was trying to prove a point. But I remember Kobe texting me about, you know, from probably 30 texts from 12 to 3:30 in the morning, and I'm texting him back, yo, man, pick up the phone. I'm tired of texting back and forth with you. But we laughed about it months later. But I remember, like, me and Kobe have always been cool, but it was hilarious that he was texting me, cursing me, calling me SOB and MF for hours in text and wouldn't pick up the phone. But, you know, I'm going to do my job. I mean, you can, because you know what, people are not going to take you serious if you criticize certain people and then don't criticize the people you like. It's not going to work.
So I saw, the reason I asked that is because I know Kendrick Perkins just got into this landscape of commentating and being a reporter. And I know he got a lot of backlash for some of his comments about Kevin Durant. And he kind of had to, you know, step back a little bit and apologize. But when you put it your way, he had a job to do. And like, even though you have developed relationships with some of these guys over time, I mean, you have to tell it like it is.
Well, you don't have to tell it like it is. I mean, first of all, your obligations, number one, to the fans, mm-hmm. Probably two, to your bosses, in no particular order. And as long as I'm going to be honest, and like I say, have I gotten in trouble before? Of course I've gotten in trouble I've gotten calls from players, coaches, general managers, and I says, hey, this is what I said. So just relax and chill out.
How are you able to manage your ego, your family? How are you able to balance that life in the NBA?
Well, I don't think you have to balance it. I mean, you have to be in the moment where you're at. Mm-hmm. I mean, whatever you're doing, you have to be in that moment. Like, you know, you can't be thinking about anything else when you're doing certain things. I mean, first of all, you're never going to be successful if you're not all in. Like, whatever you're doing, you got to be in that moment. Like, you can't be thinking about other stuff, because especially when you get on an NBA level, probably even going back to college, let's be realistic. When you start playing against other good players, like, you have to be like, I better concentrate out here. I mean, like, but whatever you're doing, you have to be doing it, whether it's fun or whether it's work.
So I know I don't like to compare eras because I just don't think it's fair, but who is someone in the league today that you think would be able to play well in the 90s?
Well, all the great players can play, number one. It's other guys, the guys on the outside, but all great players can play. But I think you have to be, if you're going to be realistic, it's a lot easier to play sports today because of the physicality. I use this analogy. It's probably the best analogy because it's a football analogy. I guarantee you that Dan Marino and Joe Montana or Jerry Rice would love to play football today when you can't touch the quarterback, you really can't touch the wide receiver, and they're throwing it another 25 times a game. It's just an easier game for the quarterback now. If you hit a quarterback down, you're probably going to get suspended or tossed out the game. Or wide receivers, they get to roam free. That's not a knock. That's not the old guy talking. That's just a fact. And I would love to play in a game where, if you did not forget who you think is the greatest ever and all this other crap, if you don't have admiration for Michael Jordan for getting beat to hell by the Pistons first 3 years and find a fourth try, it's something you got to be like. And obviously, I was in the middle of that. But watching The Last Dance, you're like, whoo, that's because, half of those guys, not even half, most of those fouls you would watch when you're watching The Last Dance, they would be flagrant fouls, and guys would be suspended. And you go back and look at the old tape, those are just like, you only got 2 free throws. I mean, that's crazy to think about that. Like, you go back and look at all those fouls against the Pistons, especially the first 2 or 3 years when they were just pummeling Michael. You're like, man, if that happens today, you're going to get a flagrant 2. So you're going to be tossed out the game. And you're going to, in one of the games when Dennis hit Scotty and pushed him up in the stands, he just got 2 free throws.
I know, because I know that you had gotten into some altercations too in your day as well. And I can't believe some of that was even allowed back then. But I like the direction the NBA is going, but I can't lie. I do enjoy when it gets a little chippy out there. I don't want to say, I don't want to see players getting hurt, but it does make it exciting when you start seeing the banter, and a little bit of pushing and shoving. Who would you say is a guy today in the NBA who not necessarily has that in their game where they're constantly getting thrown out of the game, but who would you say is someone that has that mental toughness?
Well, I love watching Russell Westbrook play. I admire the guy. I respect the guy. To me, we're talking about all this Michael Jordan stuff. He's probably the only player, not the only player, but probably the guy I would say who has a mentality like Michael, who wants to win at all costs, who's totally driven. So I got to give Russell credit for that. That man plays hard every single night. I've never seen him take a night off.
And if you were to come back and play, how would you have to adapt and change your game?
I think it'll be a lot easier. Because, with the way they got this 3-point shooting, I'm going to have more space to operate. I'm going to get more rebounds. There's going to be more rebounds because, they're jacking up those threes at such a rate. Even the bad teams are jacking them up at such a rate. So I think it would just be a lot easier to play today. You can't touch anybody. So it'd be fun to play today.
So I always wanted to see, because I actually got to interview Gary Payton a couple years ago, and I wanted to ask him how he would have went about guarding Steph Curry. I think that matchup would actually be really fun to watch just because you have a guy like Gary Payton, super tough, likes to get under your skin, and then a guy like Steph who kind of lets his game speak for himself. He doesn't do a lot of talking. How do you think that matchup would play out?
Oh, I would pay to see that matchup. I think the glove is arguably the best point guard defenders we've ever had in the league. And it would be fun to watch that matchup because Steph is terrific and the glove was terrific. But to have a great offense, a great defense is always, no matter what sport it is, a good matchup.
Yeah, no, I would love to see that. Again, he was saying that with the hand checking, if Steph was playing in the 90s, it would be a lot harder for him to rattle off all those threes if there was hand checking still.
Oh, I agree. And I said that on somewhere last week. I said, hey, I'm not an old guy hating on young guys. I think if you got any common sense whatsoever, you got to say to yourself, I want to see how Steph would have handled those licks from the bad boys. It would have been, there's no doubt in my mind he would have got hurt the way they were hitting guys. And like I say, that's just a fact.
So Michael Jordan told us a lot of these narratives he put in his head. I don't know if all of them were true about what motivated him, certain guys saying certain things. Was there any moments in your career that you would put something like that in your head or use criticism or hate to motivate you or fuel the fire?
Not really. First of all, I think there's a little bit embellishing in the documentary about like, well, he was mad about this and this and this. Listen, Michael Jordan had the perfect body. You got a guy who's a little taller than me, who can probably outrun people. He's had like the perfect body. Like I say, the guy's 6'6", 25, 230. He can outrun anybody, he can outjump anybody. So I think the notion that he was fueled by these slides, I'm like, he could guard big guys, he could outrun little guys. Him and Kobe Bryant, they probably had to, at that position, probably have arguably had the two best bodies that a two guard could ever have. To get a body that tall and have physical strength and leaping and athletic ability, like it's like the perfect storm.
And if you can choose one team from that 90s era to play against a team that's been around, I guess, let's say for the last 5-10 years, who would you want to see match up?
Well, these little teams today, I don't think they have, I look at it like this. I think that Magic and Bird, Lakers and Celtics are the best two teams I've ever seen. Then you got, I was asked this question last week. They were asking me to compare the Bulls. I said, the Bulls could not beat Bird and Magic's Lakers. But I told them, I said, the one team I think would be dangerous would be the Tim Duncan, David Robinson, Parker Ginobili Spurs. Like, David and Tim are arguably the two fastest big guys to ever play in the league. They would be a handful I think they beat Michael's Bulls, actually. Because Parker and Ginobili are going to do their thing, but they got no answers for Duncan and David Robinson. So it's all subjective, but like I say, you can never sleep on Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili and David Robinson. That team was great.
I agree with that.
They would kill any of these little teams we got in the NBA today.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Well, because it's all going small now.
Yeah.
So, no, I agree with that. So if you were a GM and you could choose your top 5 starting 5 lineup all time, who's on your list?
On my list are the greatest players ever. I got Michael 1, Oscar Robertson 2, Kareem, Wilt, Bill Russell. I got Kobe, LeBron. I got Elgin Baylor and Jerry West. I got Magic and Bird and probably Tim Duncan to finish it out. And I know that's like 11 or 12, but those to me are the best guys to ever play the game.
That's a solid list right there. And I don't think people don't give Bill Russell enough respect. I think he deserves so much more credit.
Well, listen, none of us saw him play first, but as far as the man that he is, he's up there, in my opinion, with Muhammad Ali. Those guys are social justice pioneers. He's been a father figure to me for the last 40 years. He's an amazing man. So, but none of us saw him play. But, when you got more fingers than rings, more rings than fingers, and he had to beat Wilt Chamberlain every year. He had to beat Jerry West every year. So he got my respect.
No, for sure. So what's a story that maybe no one knows about you in the NBA? Be your playing days, anything crazy that happened, or it could be anything.
Well, I think one time when I was going to get traded to the Lakers, and I was really excited. And my agent called me and said, hey, we're going to do a deal with the Lakers because I really want to get out of Philadelphia. And I had called I called about 3 or 4 of my boys, and we went out and started celebrating around noon. And they called me back around 3:30 and said the Sixers pulled out the deal. And I was really, really drunk and mad too. And I don't even know how I played that night because I was drunk and mad. But that's probably the weirdest situation I was in when I played.
And it's crazy to think that if it would have panned out that way, what would have happened, you know?
Yeah. Yep. We had the number one pick in the draft one year. When I was really excited to play with Brad, and we traded it, and he went on and had a terrific career. But it would have been fun to play with Brad Daugherty.
Oh, absolutely. But you ended up with the Suns. I know I actually saw I think it was an interview that you said that you would have loved to play with Steve Nash. What would that have been like?
Well, Steve Nash is a terrific player, and I love playing with Kevin Johnson and Dan Marley, Mark West, Sabalos, and those guys. But Steve Nash is somebody I really like as a person, and he's a hell of a player. And it was a privilege. It was a privilege for me to get a chance to watch him play.
And just a couple more questions for you. I feel bad I'm taking up so much of your time. I really appreciate you being here. Where would you rank, John Stockton, Steve Nash at top point guards all time?
Well, Isaiah Thomas is the best small point guard ever. I mean, Magic Johnson is an anomaly. I take him out. And then I got, then you got John Stockton. Those two are the best two pure point guards who've ever played the game. Isaiah probably gets screwed when we talk about great players because he never, because people had a problem with his personality at times. You got to give that man his credit. He won a national championship in college, won 2 NBA championships. He was one of the greatest ever. But I think that Isaiah enjoyed the game.
And I know we are starting to see a lot of these high school kids decide to opt out of going to college and going to the G League. And I know that you've actually spoken about your time in college. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know that you stated that you had taken money or something. What is this saying about college? And do you think that maybe they need to start figuring out a way to pay these guys?
Well, they keep saying I hear people talk about paying these guys, but who are we paying? We paying the basketball team, the football team. We paying the star players. Who are we paying? Are we paying the tennis team, soccer team? It's easy to say pay the players, but who are we paying? Let's be realistic. They don't have a game plan. Listen, number one, I hate when people tell young black kids getting a free education is no big deal. Getting a free education is a really big deal. But also, I don't like young kids coming to the NBA because they can't play, first of all, and they just keep drafting. When we were drafting high school players, everybody talk about LeBron and Kevin Garnett and Kobe Bryant, but most of those guys weren't any good. I think it hurts the NBA and it hurts college. And I'm not thrilled now with this new likeness thing because I think what's going to happen, you're just going to build up a bunch of resentment because let's be realistic. Only a couple of players on the team going to be able to sell stuff. Nobody's going to buy people stuff that just sitting on the bench. Nobody's going to buy the offensive lineman stuff or the defensive lineman stuff. They're going to buy the wide receiver, quarterback, running back. And then they're going to probably get a car deal. But I think that's going to build so much resentment on the team. I think it's going to come back to bite these guys. But to get back to my original point, I think, especially because most of these kids are black, I really hate when people tell them getting a free education is not enough. Is it perfect? No. But, man, to get out of college with no debt is a really big deal.
Do you think the NBA will end up with a team back in Seattle?
Well, they should already had one. I think Seattle's one of the best cities I've ever been to. They had one of the most amazing fan bases I've ever been around. I mean, you can see it now with the 12 when they do the Seattle games, but they're amazing fans. I wish they had a team back there by now. I know the NBA is so watered down now, I don't think we can expand. So I just don't know how they're going to do it, but I would love to see a team in Seattle because it's one of the best kept secrets in the world. Last
question for you. If the NBA does resume, who do you think is going to be in the finals and win?
Well, I'm taking the Clippers in the West, and I'm taking the Milwaukee Bucks in the East. It's going to be interesting. Number one, the players got to decide how much time they need to get in shape. This is not like a normal summer or lockout where guys could have been going to the gym every day some of these guys ain't touched a basketball. And like I said, you can do all the stuff. For only a couple guys got gyms and workout. All the rich players got gyms and workout stuff at home. So it's going to be interesting how soon they go back, how much time they get, because the last thing you need is any type of injury or, because guys haven't been able to work out and aren't in shape. So it's going to be a very interesting thing to watch. Like I say, I hope everybody, wish nothing but the best for everybody, but it's going to be interesting.
I agree. And I'm going to take the Clippers too. I'm giving them an edge just because of their depth. And I feel like they play with a little bit more intensity. You got guys like Kawhi, Patrick Beverly, Montrezl Harrell. Those are going to be pretty tough to play against, I think, even for the Lakers to get through.
Well, I think the depth is going to be important and significant.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, that's a long way before those two teams play each other. I'll tell you one thing that could be scary for the Lakers if they have to play the Portland Trail Blazers in the first round of the playoffs. Because look like after all this time, I'd be totally surprised if Nurkic and Zach Collins are not back. And let me tell you something, nobody want to see them if they get healthy.
If they've been healthy, I don't even think that they would be trying to battle for this 8 seed, but I do think that they're going to end up, if the season comes back, they're going to squeeze in there. And like you said, a nightmare.
Not to interrupt you, that's the first decision the NBA has got to make.
Yeah.
Because now, like I say, right now, this is a washed May. Now we're looking at if the players want all this time, are we going to give them all of June? And so now you're like, wait, we can't play because the regular season would probably take another, I think they had between 12 and 15 games to go. So get these guys a month to work out. And then you try to play the regular season. I mean, we're looking at July, August, September before we might be able to finish this thing. And then it's time for the next season to start. So Adam, who's an amazing commissioner, got to make some big decisions.
I know. Well, I'm hoping we can come back safely. And again, I really appreciate your time. Inside the NBA is one of my favorite shows. I miss having you guys on my TV every week. So again, thank you for your time, and I hope you continue to stay safe.
No problem. Thanks for supporting our show. I mean, you can tell me off the air how much Shaq sucks, but that's okay. Don't say it. Don't say it on the call. You can tell me off the air.
Well, the one thing that I do like about Shaq is he has an Instagram and a Twitter, so we get to see what he does outside of TNT.
That is true.
And TikToks. I would like to see you on TikTok, getting down one of those dances and stuff.
I have actually thought about getting Twitter during this pandemic, but I'll get back to you on that.